What happens when one of Hollywood's most revered actors faces off against a talk show host who thinks the stage belongs to him? Tonight we break down the fiery clash that ended with Harrison Ford storming off the Late Show set, leaving Stephen Colbert speechless, the audience stunned, and millions of viewers glued to their screens. This wasn't just another awkward celebrity moment. This was a collision between old-school gravitas and late-night arrogance. A live meltdown that became a case study in how quickly disrespect can derail even the most seasoned professional. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment because this story spirals fast and gets more intense with every second. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Harrison Ford arrived at the Late Show studios, expecting the usual. A round of light banter, a few jokes, and a chance to plug his latest film. Instead, he walked into a trap. From the moment the cameras rolled, something about Colbert's tone felt off. His smile was tight, his eyes sharp. Not warm, not welcoming. "So, Harrison, let's talk about your legendary career," Colbert began, his voice soaked in ironic reverence. "You've played some iconic characters, but don't you ever get tired of living in the past?" Ford's brow furrowed, not angry yet, but caught off guard. "I wouldn't say I'm living in the past, Stephen. I'm proud of my work, sure. But I'm always looking forward, always working on something new." Right, Colbert cut in, leaning forward like a cat about to pounce. "But when was the last time you did something truly groundbreaking? I mean, you've been coasting on Han Solo and Indiana Jones for, 40 years? The audience shifted in their seats. This wasn't the playful sparring they expected. Ford didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. That's a pretty narrow view of what I've done. I've worked with visionary directors. I've told stories that mean something to people. Stories that matter? Colbert mocked. Like Crystal Skull? Or surviving a nuclear blast? In a fridge? Come on, Harrison. Even you must know some of those sequels were nothing but cash grabs. In the green room, Ford's publicist sprang to her feet, signaling frantically to the producers. But Colbert wasn't done. He was just getting started. "You know what I find interesting about your generation of actors?" Colbert pressed. "You all act like you're immune to criticism, like you're sacred cows who can't be touched." "I've never said I'm above criticism," Ford replied, his voice now laced with steel. "But there's a line between asking real questions and whatever it is you think you're doing right now." "Oh, really?" Colbert grinned. "I thought I was doing my job, asking the tough questions. Or were you expecting me to lob softballs and stroke your ego?" Ford leaned back, his eyes cold and unreadable. The same look that had frozen villains in their tracks for decades. "I expected basic respect, Stephen. Something you're clearly struggling with tonight." The room fell silent. You could hear the tension humming in the air like electricity. But Colbert pushed on, sensing blood. "You want respect?" He shot back. "Then earn it. And frankly, I don't think showing up to recycle 40-year-old roles qualifies anymore." That did it. Ford's voice dropped to that unmistakable growl. "I've been in this business longer than you've been shaving, kid. I've worked hard. I've earned my place. And I didn't get here by cheap shots and clickbait questions." Colbert laughed, a short, sharp bark of disdain. "Kid? That's your comeback? Age doesn't earn you respect, Harrison. Results do. And lately, your results have been, let's say, uneven." Ford's grip tightened on the arms of his chair. "My recent work includes Blade Runner 2049, directed by Denis Villeneuve. That film was critically acclaimed and commercially successful. Maybe if you did your homework, you'd know that." "Oh, I did my research," Colbert fired back. "Like how you admitted to wanting Han Solo to die because you were bored with the role. Is that what you call respecting your craft?" The accusation landed like a punch. Ford's eyes narrowed. "I said that because I wanted Han's story to have meaning. I cared about the character. That's called storytelling, not boredom." Colbert smirked. "Is that also what you call it, when you demand top billing and sky-high paychecks for movies no one asked for?" Without warning, Ford stood up. His chair skidded backward. The audience gasped. Cameramen scrambled. "Nobody asked for it," he said, voice rising. "The fans asked for it, Stephen. The same fans you're now trying to impress by tearing me down on national television." Colbert stayed seated but leaned in like a man baiting a bull. "I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about your career, but clearly you're not equipped for that." Ford's composure cracked, his voice no longer calm. "You haven't asked a single honest question since I walked out here. You've been on the attack since second one." The moment the cameras began rolling, it was clear something was off. "You call this attacking?" Colbert's laugh was cold, deliberate. "This is what real journalism looks like, Harrison. Not the fluff pieces you're used to, where everyone kisses your boots and pretends your last 10 films weren't complete letdowns." Ford remained standing, his tall frame casting a long shadow over Colbert's desk. "Real journalism?" he repeated, voice low and cutting. "You're not a journalist, Stephen. You're a comedian playing dress-up. And tonight, you're failing at both." The insult hit home. Colbert's expression cracked for a brief moment, just long enough to reveal the sting, before he pasted on that slick, practiced smile. "A comedian playing dress-up," he echoed. "At least I'm honest about what I do. I don't pretend to be some method actor disappearing into roles when it's obvious you've been phoning it in from orbit." Ford's response came soft and lethal. "Phoning it in? Let's talk about that. Your comedy's a rerun of a rerun. Same tired monologues, recycled jabs, political punchlines that died a decade ago. When I show up, at least I bring something. Original." Colbert stood abruptly, abandoning any pretense of professional restraint. "Original? Please, you've been playing the same cranky archetype for 20 years. Indiana Jones, Han Solo, Rick Deckard. They're all just the same grouchy guy in different jackets. And you," Ford snapped back, "have been playing the same smug, sanctimonious host since the day you got this desk. The only difference is, I get paid better for my performances." The audience was dead silent now. What had started as entertainment had spiraled into something raw, unscripted, and undeniably real. A few audience members raised their phones to record, ignoring the no filming signs. This was no longer just a show. It was a showdown. Colbert's eyes narrowed. "You know what your problem is, Harrison? You think just because you starred in a few great movies decades ago, you're untouchable. That your name alone is enough to excuse mediocrity." "You're dragging out cowboys and aliens," Ford growled. "One film, one swing and miss in a 50-year career. And you want to hang me with it?" Colbert stepped forward. "Oh, let's not forget the Expendables 3, Ender's Game, that Blade Runner sequel nobody wanted." Ford's fists clenched. Blade Runner 2049 was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, won 2. It was praised by critics, embraced by fans. But you wouldn't know that, would you? Doesn't fit your narrative." Colbert scoffed. "My narrative? My narrative is that you're a washed-up relic who can't accept he's irrelevant. You're clinging to the past while Hollywood quietly moves on without you." The words hit like a slap. Ford's jaw flexed. For a second, it looked like he might walk away. Instead, he stepped forward. "You're right about one thing, Stephen. This industry has changed. It used to be about mutual respect, about professionalism. Now it's about cheap shots and viral moments, and hosts like you, who mistake cruelty for insight," Colbert sneered. "You know what makes good TV? Honesty. Calling out bloated egos and fake humility. Exposing the man behind the myth." Ford leaned in, eyes dark, voice a controlled burn. "You want to talk about ego? You parade around like some cultural gatekeeper, deciding who deserves to be respected. But this ambush, you didn't want a conversation. You wanted a spectacle." Colbert snapped back. "If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't sit down for interviews." Ford let out a sharp laugh. "Tough questions? You haven't asked me a single thing about the film I'm here to promote, about the work I'm doing right now. You've been on a mission to tear down my legacy since minute one." Offstage, Colbert's producer was waving frantically for a commercial break. Neither man noticed. "Legacy," Colbert repeated mockingly. "That's all you have, the past. You can't name one thing you're excited about because deep down, you know your time is up." Ford finally snapped. His voice thundered. "My time is up. I've been working non-stop for 5 decades. I've survived every trend, every shift in the culture, and every premature obituary. I'll still be working long after people forget your name." Colbert's face twisted. "Forget my name. I'm at the top of my game right now. I'm relevant. I matter in ways you can't even imagine." Ford shook his head slowly, with something close to pity. "You think this mockery, provocation, ambush is relevance? You're not influential, Stephen. You're just loud and cruel." That word landed with a thud. Cruel. Colbert blinked. The fury drained for a moment, replaced by something murky. Guilt, maybe. But it vanished just as fast. "I'm being honest," he barked. "Something Hollywood stopped being with you years ago." Ford's eyes blazed as he took a final step forward. "Hollywood keeps hiring me because I deliver. Because I show up prepared," Ford said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "I do my job with professionalism, and I treat people with respect. 3 things you've completely ignored tonight." Colbert laughed, but it cracked, with something closer to hysteria than humor. "Respect? You want to lecture me on respect? You just called me a comedian playing dress-up on national television. You insulted my professionalism in front of my own audience." Ford's eyes were like frozen steel. "I questioned your professionalism because you haven't demonstrated any. A real professional would have come prepared, with thoughtful questions about my current work. Instead, you ambushed me with petty insults disguised as journalism." "Petty insults?" Colbert's voice rose, face flushed with anger. "Everything I said tonight is public record. Your own interviews, reviews, box office numbers. If you can't handle scrutiny, maybe you should have stuck to carpentry." The jab was sharp, a deliberate hit referencing Ford's pre-Hollywood days, but it didn't land the way Colbert intended. Ford didn't flinch. His rage cooled into something darker, more dangerous. "You know the difference between carpentry and what you do, Stephen?" he asked quietly. "When you build something, you respect the materials. You lay a strong foundation. You create something that lasts. You just tear people down for a laugh." Colbert let out a manic laugh. "Tear people down? I build audiences. Millions of people watch me every night. I create content. What have you built lately? Other than disappointment?" Ford stepped even closer to the desk, towering now, his presence menacing. Security had started edging toward the stage, sensing the moment was spiraling. I've built a career by showing up, doing the work, and not stepping on others to prop myself up. This is work too, Colbert shouted, motioning to the audience. This is my job, asking the questions that matter. Just because you don't like the questions doesn't make them illegitimate. Shud's voice dropped to a whisper, colder than ever, and somehow it hit harder than anything he'd said before. You want to hear a legitimate question, Stephen? Here's one. When did humiliating your guests become more important than entertaining your audience? For the first time all night, Colbert had no comeback. His mouth opened, then closed. No words came. The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few even stood up, clearly unsettled. Ford didn't stop. Here's another one. Do you actually believe this is good television? Or are you just so desperate for viral clips that you're willing to torch your own reputation to get them? Mouth. Reputation? Colbert finally found his voice, though it was tremulous. My reputation's fine, Harrison. I have the platform. I have the audience. People tune in to see me every night. They tune in to see your guests, Ford replied coldly. Guests you're supposed to talk with, not ambush. Guests you're supposed to respect, not humiliate. But you've forgotten that. You've bought into your own hype. Colbert's hands trembled. Whether from anger or something deeper was unclear. You're accusing me of believing my own hype? That's rich, coming from a guy who's ridden Star Wars and Raiders for 40 years. Ford shook his head slowly, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. You still don't get it. Those films worked, because everyone involved cared. Directors, writers, actors. We weren't chasing fame. We were building something meaningful. He gestured around the studio. This is just you trying to look important by making others look small. Colbert's voice cracked again, higher pitched now. I'm not making you look small. You're doing that yourself. Standing there, yelling at me, preaching about professionalism while you're the one who lost control. Ford raised an eyebrow. You think this is me losing control? Ford's eyes swept across the studio. Stephen, look around. Look at your audience. Look at your crew. Does this feel like good television to you? For the first time, Colbert glanced at the crowd. The sight hit him harder than expected. Instead of the eager, laughing fans he was used to, he saw a room filled with tension. Viewers whispered to each other, checked their phones, and some front-row seats were now empty. But instead of backing down, Colbert squared his shoulders. My audience knows quality when they see it. They know the difference between a real interview and the promotional fluff you're used to. Ford exhaled, slow, steady, final. You're right about one thing, Stephen. This is different from every other interview I've done. Because every other host I've worked with understood that their job was to elevate their guest, not tear them down for sport. Colbert scoffed, his voice rising. Why should I make you look good? What have you brought to the table tonight? You show up with nothing new to say, and now I'm the problem. Ford studied him, then spoke, his voice heavy with something colder than anger. Disappointment. I came here to talk about my work, to share stories, maybe even entertain your audience for a few minutes. That's what guests do. That's what this format used to be about. Colbert barked a bitter laugh. You really think people want to hear ancient stories about movies from the 70s and 80s? You think that's entertainment? Ford's patience snapped. I don't have to stand here and take this, he said, stepping toward the edge of the stage. Colbert leaned forward, taunting. "Oh, what now? You gonna storm off? Throw a diva tantrum because someone dared to criticize you?" Ford stopped, turned back. His face was hard as granite. "You call this criticism? I've worked with the toughest directors in Hollywood. Men and women who demanded perfection. They pushed me, yes. But they did it with respect. They did it to make the work better, not to stroke their own ego." Colbert sneered. "Ah, respect. There it is again. You talk about it like it's owed to you." He jabbed a finger. "Well, here's a little truth, Harrison. Respect is earned, and, frankly, your recent work hasn't earned much." Ford stepped back to the desk, his voice now low, unwavering. "You want to talk about earning respect? Respect is showing up every day, doing the work, even when the material isn't perfect. It's treating people like collaborators, not props, in your personal circus." Colbert threw up his hands. "This isn't personal, Harrison. This is television. This is what happens when you agree to be interviewed." Ford shook his head slowly. "No, Stephen. This is what happens when someone with a platform abuses it. When a host forgets his job is to serve the audience, not himself." He turned, to leave again. Colbert's voice chased him down. "Go on, then. Walk off. Show everyone the kind of professional you really are." Ford paused at the edge of the stage, then turned. His voice rang through the studio with quiet power. "I've been a professional for 50 years. I've worked with legends and first-timers, with difficult directors and demanding producers. But I've never worked with anyone who seemed to enjoy cruelty the way you have tonight." Colbert's tone turned desperate. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. Someone has to tell you the truth about your career." Ford's final words landed like a gavel. "The truth about my career? I've had the privilege of working with people who cared about creating something worthwhile. People who understood that collaboration, not destruction, is what makes great work. I've spent decades learning from those better than me, not tearing them down to feel superior." He paused, looking back one last time. "And the truth is, Stephen, after tonight, no one's going to remember what questions you asked. They'll remember how you treated a guest." With that, Harrison Ford walked off the Late Show stage. Stephen Colbert stood alone, behind his desk, staring into an audience that no longer looked amused. The cameras kept rolling just long enough to catch his stunned expression. The silence was deafening. For the first time in his career, Stephen Colbert had no comeback, no joke to smooth it over, no applause line to end the night. He had pushed a Hollywood legend too far, and everyone in the room knew they had just witnessed something unforgettable. What did you think of this explosive moment? Have you ever seen a talk show meltdown like this before? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more unbelievable Hollywood confrontations.